Tim, tell the audience and Bill why you believe this was a mistake for Biden, and I'll let him respond directly.
I know what he's going to say. If he's for this, he's going to say that it allowed, them to hit areas that they could launch into Ukraine, and I get that. But we've escalated this war, and Putin has his back against the wall on this thing. More than anything, his pride. The Ukrainians are doing much better than American military intelligence thought they would, but he is threatening nuclear war. And I dare say, I don't know that I think I would take that very serious. I really would, because I do not want to risk that. If we have a nuclear conflict, everybody knows it's one of those things. It's not like when North Korea does it and they can't get it off the launch pad and it kills 200 people underground and over 200 on top of the ground. This thing could escalate quickly. And if something happens to Putin and his number two comes in, could be worse. I just think we need to de-escalate this as fast as possible. I think Trump has a different plan. I think the world understands that. I think those people who have invested heavily in Americans' missile defense system, primarily a group of congressmen on both sides of the aisle, need to quit voicing their opinions on this thing.
Bill.
Of course, the senator's right. We have to take it seriously.
Not a senator yet. Still a member of Congress in Tennessee. Don't blow up his head.
Don't be cussing me now. What are you doing? I'm not 150 years old.
Sorry to go down on you there, Congressman. But you're right, of course. We have to take this seriously. You're absolutely right. Putin does have nuclear weapons. There's no doubt about that. And he has said many times in the 1,000 days that Chris just mentioned that the Russians have been invading Ukraine, he has said many times that he is threatening to use these. Every time that we've decided or we were thinking about providing the next weapon, whether it's the tank or the F-16 or the HIMARS or indeed the ATACMS that we're now talking about now, or even whether we're going to allow the Ukrainians to shoot into Russia 2 months ago, which we decided every time we had a decision, Mr. Putin says, I've got nuclear weapons. And you're absolutely right, we have to take it seriously, but he has said that every time, and every time he has not. Now, you mentioned how the North Koreans have problems with their weapons. The Russians have problems with their weapons. The Russians have tested a weapon that has exploded in the silo 3 times. It may not even work. And the Chinese have told him, Congressman, as you know, the Chinese have said, President Xi has said to President Putin, shut up, don't even talk about using nuclear weapons. I think there is a very, very low chance that he will do this. And I think if we don't stop the Russians, if the Ukrainians don't stop the Russians with our support in Ukraine, we are threatened.
So let me reframe it this way. One fact that I think is helpful for the audience. These are long-range missiles, but they are not as long as the range that Russia's already been using in this conflict, which is part of the reason they asked for them. Congressman Burchett, as you know, is that they were getting hit by missiles that were held at a distance that they couldn't reach. So that was the rationale. But the bigger question for you is, are you concerned that if you mollify Putin, you get more of this elsewhere?
Yes, I am. And I think everybody knows Trump one of his biggest goals is to end this conflict, and along with shutting our southern border down and taking care of that situation. And I just think we should do everything we can to not necessarily appease Putin, but not to antagonize him.
And Bill, the idea of you didn't need to do this, they're hitting you with longer range rockets, fine, but we don't need to up the level of armament that's involved here. What do you mean? What do you make of that?
We do need to push the Russians back away from the border. We need to stop the bombardment that is killing children, women, soldiers, but civilians, and is attacking infrastructure, energy infrastructure. They're about to go into winter, Chris, Congressman, and the Russians are cynically targeting energy so that the Ukrainians are freezing. So yes, we do need to push them back, and yes, these new weapons do have a link. The other thing, by the way, Chris and Congressman, that we keep in mind is it's not just our weapons. We're also talking about British and French weapons that do the same kind of things, which would add to the numbers, which is one of the arguments that they don't have enough. Well, they will have 3 nations worth, and maybe 4, because the Germans have even a longer range version of this. And the Germans, no sign yet that they're going to do it, but there's enough pressure for them to also go in to provide the weapons to allow the Ukrainians to push the Russians back.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.